here is the Shrouded Fable Kingambit box. It says it has 3 promos and 4 boosters. And for today, what I'm thinking that we'll talk about is what I have pre-planned, to be honest, is to talk about the separation of church and state and the establishment clause and the free exercise clause. So first off, fun fact is that the Constitution was not our original document. It was the Articles of Confederation. And the Constitution wasn't ratified until 1787. So that's the first thing that people misunderstand. So we're going to be talking about misunderstandings today. At the beginning of the amendments, if we look at the Bill of Rights, including the First Amendment, starting off with the First Amendment, we have a few rights in there. But one of the most, they're all important. That's why they're all first. But one of the most important is the religious rights here, okay? So the very, very First Amendment and the first part of the First Amendment says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Okay, so what that means is there's basically 2 clauses inside of that First Amendment, in the first sentence of the First Amendment. Okay, so we have 4 packs of Shrouded Fable then. Okay. So the Establishment Clause is that first clause that literally just says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. And then the second part of that would be the Free Exercise Clause that says that Congress cannot make a law prohibiting the exercise, the free exercise of religion. Okay, so when we look at, what does that mean? Well, to establish means to set up an organization, system, or set of rules on a firm or permanent basis, which means that basically the government is not allowed to make what's called a state religion, so not like an official one. And then what does free exercise mean? Well, to exercise means to use, basically, or to do. That's pretty nice. I'll take that one. Tapu Bulu. Okay. That's not bad. Okay. Put this over here. Okay. So basically, that means that we can practice our religion without the government getting involved. Now, that does not mean that if your religion says that you can kill people, that's what you do. That's not what that means. Okay, but it does mean that we can practice our religion without the government basically getting involved, as long as it doesn't interfere with other people's rights. Okay, now, normal people normally combine these 2 clauses into basically the freedom of religion, right? And also the separation of church and state. So that's really important to keep in mind. I haven't seen that kind of pattern before. I like that. All right. Okay, so as a history teacher for 10 years now, I can definitely confirm that religion is taught in schools. But this controversy is not about whether it is taught in schools or not, because everybody's like, it should be taught in schools. Yeah, it is. Maybe you weren't paying attention, but we definitely teach religion in schools. Now, the main concern is how it is taught. So if we are using it in a historical context, I haven't seen that one. It's really important. Like you do have to teach history. Again, there's that same pattern that I hadn't seen before. You do have to teach history. You do have to teach religion and history. It explains a lot of why people do what they do, right? So when it also comes to the Supreme Court and people's rights being violated, the Supreme Court oftentimes, in cases that involve children, like regarding religion in schools, for instance, they're going to side on the side of the children because they are young and impressionable, but they still do have rights. Just because they are under the age of 18 doesn't mean, I like that art, doesn't mean that they don't have rights, right? And that was something, okay, so that's the same one that we got before. Okay, so I guess this is a a pattern simply in what is this, Shrouded Fable. And I like it when I get them back to back. I think that's kind of fun. They get the same card but different versions back to back. Okay, so I don't know how much this one is, but it's a full art, which I know is a good thing. Single star, I don't know. Okay, so that's that box. But I also have some extras because I figured I might need them to add some length to this video. So let me put these off to the side along with the promos here. Put those on top. I also have this Fusion Strike. So let's open up this one. So Tinker versus Des Moines is a related case here. And I'll probably make a whole other case or a whole other video about it later. But basically Tinker versus Des Moines was regarding students' freedom of speech. And it was about the Vietnam War, blah, blah, blah. In essence, there's a lot of cool things. It's one of my favorite cases of all time. But one of the things worth noting is that... Oh, it's not hollow. Okay, whatever. That's fine. I'll take it. Then this guy. Okay, so nothing interesting to me in there. Here's a Scarlet and Violet booster pack. Okay, so before Tinker versus Des Moines, in 1962, there was a case called Engel versus Vital. And basically the cause or the question here, or the scenario, was that at the beginning of the school day in New York State, they would have daily prayer at the beginning of the day. So the thing about that is that you can look at the official school prayer that they had. You can see that it is short. It's one sentence. It doesn't have any mention of Jesus or any specific thing. It does say the word God, but that's it. And otherwise, it's a non-denominational prayer. Okay. However, this is still for children, right? And it's still happening at school, and it was a prayer written by the school, not the school, but by the government. And if we look at the opinion of that case, to quote it, it says, that prayer was composed by government officials as a part of the governmental program to further religious beliefs. So it was pretty obvious to them that this was a violation of the Establishment Clause. I also have these packs of Rebel Clash. So the thing is, a lot of times the people who like to blur the lines between this separation of church and state is that they'll talk about how our founding fathers were very religious men and Christian, and that's true, but it's important to study context when we're studying history too, because that context is why people do what they do, right? So when it comes to religion and our founders and the founding of our country, I do like Voltorb and Growlithe. The thing about that is that, you know, a lot of the reasons why many of the people came over to what is now the United States is because, oh look, again, we have the same one, is because of a problem with the Church of England. And the Church of England making specific rules about this is how you're supposed to pray. These are a bunch of rules, you know, make sure you're following these rules. And they didn't like that. And so, yes, our founders were agnostic, some were Christian. But more specifically, they definitely believed in a separation of church and state because they had experienced what it's like when it's not separated. And they knew that that was going to be a tyrannical situation that they did not want to be a part of. Further, to counter this argument is, if it wasn't important to them, why would they put it as the First Amendment? And to go one step further, why would they make it the first part of the First Amendment? Okay, that's pretty straightforward as to how important it was to them. Because why else would you do that if it wasn't important to you? And this is the last pack. So in the opinion of the case, it was written by the Justice Hugo Black, and he was talking about this situation with and this discussion, this historical discussion regarding our founders and how they felt about the separation of church and state. And he mentions how James Madison and Thomas Jefferson, who for whatever reason, people who again like to blur the lines, like to mention Thomas Jefferson, they both made a law, like they were big supporters of a law called the Virginia Bill for Religious Liberty. And in the opinion, he says, and I'll quote, that this law had all religious groups were placed on equal footing so far as the state was concerned. So again, if Thomas Jefferson, if James Madison, if our founding fathers were like, oh, it's okay to put it in schools or whatever, wouldn't they have not made that law? Wouldn't they have not made it an amendment? And wouldn't they have not put it at the front of their amendment? Okay, so in summation, so nothing, I mean, I don't know how much this is, but maybe a couple bucks, I don't know. But in summation, okay, when it comes to the separation of church and state, there was a quote from the end of the opinion. And he says that the founding fathers wrote the First Amendment to, quote, quiet, well-justified fears, which nearly all of them felt, arising out of an awareness that governments of the past had shackled men's tongues to make them speak only the religious thoughts that the government wanted them to speak, and to pray only to the government, only to the God that the government wanted them to pray to. So again, our founders were very smart men. They were very learned and well-traveled men who had interacted with a lot of different types of people who had a lot of different religions, and understanding that that is fundamental. But also understanding what is fundamental is the diversity of that. And although we can say a lot of things about the founding fathers and how they felt about racial diversity, when it comes to religious diversity, that was definitely something that they felt was important. And if you keep into perspective how philosophical these guys were, it makes a lot of sense. So again, that was Rebel Clash. I had a few of those that I found at Family Dollar, Scarlet and Violet booster pack that I found at Family Dollar. This Fusion Strike I found at Pokemon vending machine. And then we had some Shrouded Fable as well. So if you're interested in anything social studies, put a comment as to what you would like to learn about, and I will do my research and get back to you. So let's see what happens next.